It is September the 8th, 2024, and we're going to go back to the manuscript for a little bit. This is chapter 25, so it's all written out. I haven't reread it or anything. I'm just going to go through it, and as I think of things that have happened since I wrote it, I'll try to throw them in. The chapter's entitled 2023, Drawing on the Right Side. Winter in Illinois. You may imagine corn stalks in the snow. You would not be wrong. I'm outside less, and I wear hats and caps. The sound of synthetic fibers moving past each other make it harder to hear. To stargaze, I still do it when the weather permits, one must bundle up. As a result, I didn't notice anything around the farm or in the sky worthy of mentioning that January. MUFON, however, rang in 2023 by publishing another article. This time it was Drawing on the Right Side of the Universe. I summarized the article this way, quote, me. The left brain, right brain phenomena affects how we how we view our world and our response to it. It also restricts the playing field for our thought processes. Many researchers have never knowingly experienced the abilities of their own brain's right hemisphere, i.e., the other half of their toolbox. I humbly suggest this could skew the research and limit our vision, our imagination, and our potential success in the fields of ufology, cryptozoology, and megalithic archaeology, as well as life in general. And I did read this paragraph just to make sure I still could read right before I hit record. And it occurred to me that the revival of paganism, witchcraft, and what have you, may be a much more right-brained operation. And it will be interesting to see if that continues. I think it might be, but it'll be interesting to see what I find. Using only the left hemisphere, are we looking for answers where there aren't any questions just because the light is better? Using only the left hemisphere, are we looking for answers where there aren't any questions? I discussed this article with my neighbors, and they suggested a couple of authors I might enjoy. These two guys are mentioned below. I admit I scanned a couple of their books, but I am not searching for what they study. They are deep into their own puzzles, and I am a thin slice guy. So I mentioned them in the article, and I hope I didn't take them completely out of context, as follows. Quote, again, me. I am left brain dominant, and you probably are too. Scientists like Roger W. Sperry and authors like Joseph Chilton Pearce confirm that humans are of two minds. The left hemisphere of the brain controls verbal and analytical skills. It likes math and science, logical sequences, precise language, etc. Google the list and you'll probably see some of yourself in there. I certainly did. And I still do. Look at us trying to go chronologically through my manuscript. How poetic and swirly is that? Going on in that article, in her 1979 book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, Betty Edwards, PhD, explained that to draw realistically, one needs to learn to see in a new way. Boy, that's paganism and witchcraft up one side and down the other, isn't it? But also research into all of this unknown stuff. To draw realistically, one needs to learn to see in a new way. That's very true. This is done by giving the left dominant hemisphere of the brain exercises that it refuses to do. As the student attempts this, they often notice the mental struggle between their ears, and if they stay the course, they find themselves joyfully drawing all the edges of a crumpled wad of newspaper, noticing every minute detail unaware that hours have passed since they began. In short, thinking and seeing in a way they had never done before. That absolutely happens. It becomes a meditation. What happened? When the left hemisphere, with its military chain of command, counting house discipline, and disdain for nine-sided pegs in round holes, can't categorize, symbolize, name, count, or find a monetary profit from the activity, it throws up its hands and shuts down. This allows the right hemisphere to express its love of music, poetry, artistry, and relationships without words and without analyzing. Boy, if that's not compressing a whole lot of our lives into a drop, I don't know what is. You see, the right brain already knows how to draw. Yes, you do. If you want to learn to draw, you can learn. This will show you. It has always known. The owner of the brain just needs to teach the left hemisphere how to share. Overcome its fear of losing control of its world for just a little while. I'm talking about drawing here. I'm talking about thinking outside the box as we research things that are not supposed to exist. I'm thinking that paganism may already be doing this as they search to try to recreate a spiritual path that was wiped out in favor of Christianity in early Europe. But boy, does that explain a lot of other things that are going on now. But inside a single brain, if you scale that up, it may sound familiar in other ways. Just saying. The left brain is possibly where fascists come from. Actually, I'm kidding. I'm sure that's where they come from. End quote. That's what I said in the article. They published that. I'm glad. What we see here is the idea that the biggest obstacles in our lives are usually the ones between our ears. So you see, all rabbit holes do lead to the same place, the mind of man. The article goes on, quote, "What Betty didn't realize in 1972 is that she had tripped over the tip of an iceberg," unquote. Her book isn't just about drawing a realistic face or fingers. It impacts almost every response to every issue we have heard of in our lives, including ufology, because they have all been defined, described, divided, and dissected by a left hemisphere response going back hundreds or thousands of years. Look at the militarization of the, quote, threat from outer space, unquote, and the need to extend our so-called dominance into it. It's not even like, quote, guess who's coming to dinner, Sidney Poitier, unquote. No, it's more like, let's just shoot him. That is all left brain stuff. We may need a space force to deal with militant human actors, as the most recent parlance calls them. But we have not seen offensive actions from our unknown visitors coming into our personal space. If we have, show me the bodies. What do you mean you can't? You see, two can play that game. They always could. And that's what they've done. They've, even Lou Elizondo and the folks like that, who I respect immensely, I hope that they're framing it as a threat because that is what governments respond to. And I hope they don't really believe it. But the risk is that either A, they do believe it's a threat, or they're wanting it to be treated as a threat. I hope that's not true, because I do believe that there's no threat from them whatsoever except to the way we think. I go on. Questions are an attribute of God, and ufology is us looking for answers. We can't really question everything, but questioning the status quo and whoever tells us what they think we want to hear is probably essential. Why? Because they are more than likely left brain dominant, just like you and me, and thus have a left brain agenda in mind for us. Stay the course, keep your nose to the grindstone, hoe your row, don't make waves, and for gosh sakes, don't paint a seascape. You don't want to become a starving artist, do you? That's what I said in the article. I am an artist, so I couldn't resist. The writings have a lot to say about art and creativity, and they don't say those activities should be secondary to capitalism. If you are an artist too, it might be worth your while to research the writings in that regard when you need a spiritual energy boost to your creativity or need to help your efforts regain their sense of importance in life. I continued. The brain's left hemisphere is the matrix that has us, Neo. And freeing the right side of the brain to get some exercise once in a while and achieve better balance with the left may be part of our species coming of age that ET is here to witness. The right hemisphere is an untapped resource, part of a fathomless, this is a quote, fathomless and surging ocean that is near, astonishingly near unto you. Behold, it is closer to you than your life vein, unquote. That's from the Baha'i writings. It's close because it is your brain. It defines your universe, your reality, and how your thoughts work. We have been trying to solve riddles with one brain hemisphere, the one that is good at riddles tied behind our backs. I'm going to read that again. We have been trying to solve riddles with the one brain hemisphere that is good at riddles tied behind our backs. If we have lost mental powers and abilities, like perhaps mind speak, a sixth or seventh sense, etc., it may have occurred as the left hemisphere became dominant. Does relying on only half a brain equal dumbing down? You tell me. We ufologists believe we are free thinkers, just as another group I've mentioned think they are free spirits. That sounds very similar. Because we accept the possibility that ET, Sabe or Sasquatch, and alternative historical timelines exist. We have gotten this far the hard way, the left brain only way. I suppose one could argue the need to fight fire with fire, left brain to left brain, mano to mano, but that is sort of like winning the rat race. There is the risk that you will remain a rat. In the article I go on. Ask yourself, how does Sabe mind speak in English, Spanish, Russian, or whatever? They don't verbalize in those languages, do they? My guess is it has something to do with right hemisphere maturity or both hemispheres working in unity. Now that's just my surmise, but I've never heard that anywhere else. So if you've heard it somewhere else, I'd like to talk to that guy or lady. We see intelligently piloted ships that defy physics and thus imply more advanced civilizations, but then we ascribe to them our own left brain dominant thoughts. And worse, we think nothing of that, like it is the only possibility. Really? Back to the article. Going on with the article. I assume for a second that a successful life is when you overcome self. Isn't your dominant left hemisphere part of yourself? If ET and Sabe are more advanced than us, that doesn't mean they have more money, does it? They must have systems, strategies, methods, motivations, and relationships as yet undiscovered by left-brained earthlings. It means, in my lowly opinion, they are spiritually evolved. Describe for yourself what it means to be more evolved and what attributes such a being must have, and maybe that's what they are. To achieve this, perhaps they have unified their own brains, left and right, unquote. The writings say, quote, so powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth, unquote. That's from the Baha'i writings. If it is the mind of man that is to become unified by these writings at this time, does it make sense to leave out the cooperation of both hemispheres? Back to the article I wrote. What if ETs have been communicating without left brain logic and symbols? What if color and hue has meaning for them? Or the patterns traced by their erratic flight, like a honeybee dance? What if they pose questions our left brain refuses to answer or cannot comprehend? What if we are depriving ourselves of the mental tools we need to reach their level? Questions just I asking am. Know what I mean? What I had not realized when I wrote these words was that I might need to approach my own encounters with Sabe and the various items they have presented to me through a right-brained response. Now, in 2024, earlier this year, as I write this book, it's like January or February when I was writing this, I may have figured out a possibility or two, as you will see. Back to Betty Edwards for a second. For you artists of whatever kind, one little-known mystical religion says, quote, art is worship. The more thou strivest to perfect it, the closer wilt thou come to God. What bestowal could be greater than this, that one's art should be even as the act of worshiping the Lord? That is to say, when thy fingers grasp the paintbrush, it is as if thou wert at prayer in the temple, unquote. I ended the article this way, quote, to sum up, the right brain paints a portrait of the rolling ocean. The left brain secures it in a frame with square corners. To see what the universe might divulge, I have half a mind to do both, unquote. See you next time.